What's up? What's happening? Dan Lucero here, guy remember in chief at 580 Sports Talk on the 580 Sports Talk YouTube page. It's been a long time, and I shouldn't have left you without an immaculate grid to step to. So let's do another edition on this YouTube channel of Immaculate Grid with Dan. Remember, you can play along every day. I do the grids every day at immaculategrid.com. And if you're finding this video and you're not a subscriber to the 580 Sports Talk YouTube page, you should do that. You should subscribe because there are more videos like this. And of course, our live show, 580 Sports Talk, 3 to 6 weekdays as well. It's an immaculate grid kind of day today, and it's a football grid kind of day today because the Chiefs are on the grid. And I know we like to do the grids when the local teams are featured. So we got Pro Football Grid number 428 on this day, September 19th. Is when this is being recorded and posted. And we've got the Chiefs as one of the three columns today, along with the Minnesota Vikings and players with 3,000 or more passing yards in a single season. The rows are the Buffalo Bills, the Miami Dolphins, and the Pittsburgh Steelers. What do you say we get right to it? Let's go ahead and knock out the Bills and the Vikings row first, or column, square, I guess. Bills, Vikings square. We'll do the Vikings column first. Let's start with this one. Let's start with Latavius Murray, the journeyman running back who is still a free agent. We talked about him on 580 Sports Talk as a possible street free agent the Chiefs could have picked up with the injury to Isaiah Pacheco. Instead, they went with Kareem Hunt. I'm sure that'll turn out great. Latavius Murray played for the Bills last season, appeared in 16 games, averaged 3.8 yards per rush, which is almost a full yard more than Kareem Hunt averaged last year, and also has never kicked a woman in the hallway of a hotel. But other than that, same guy. Latavius Murray, 4%, good start to the Immaculate Grid today. I'm going to go with one of my favorite journeyman quarterbacks in the Dolphins-Vikings square. Going with my guy, Gus Frerotte, 2%. Well-traveled Gus Frerotte. He played for 7 different teams, and somehow that feels like a low number. Washington, Minnesota, Denver, the Rams, the Dolphins, the Lions, and the Bengals. And every single one of those teams took a spin with him as their starting quarterback for at least one game, 46 of his 93 starts with Washington, but 3 years in Minnesota, mostly as a backup, and 1 year in Miami as the starter in 2005. I don't remember the 2005 Dolphins very well. I can't imagine that was the plan to go into the year and start Gus Frerotte, but I guess it was. The other quarterback that played on that year's roster was Sage Rosenfels. So maybe that was the plan for then Dolphins coach Nick Saban. Wow, I can't believe it didn't work out in the NFL for Nick Saban. Gus Frerotte, 2%. Steelers, Vikings, veteran receiver Mike Wallace played in the league for a long time, 10% here, so a little higher than I like on these squares. But I've told you before, I'm not as good at the football grid as I am the baseball grid. Mike Wallace broke in with the Steelers, good years with them, then went to Miami, then was a journeyman towards the end, Minnesota, Baltimore, finished with Philadelphia for just 2 games back in 2018. But certainly best years were early in Pittsburgh, though he did have a 1,000-yard season as a 30-year-old with the Ravens. So solid player over the course of his career, the Ole Miss Rebel Mike Wallace. Good career for a third-round pick at wide receiver. We'll jump over the Chiefs. We'll save them for last. We'll remember some guys in the 3,000 yards passing department. This is a fun one to do because there's obviously all the obvious answers. Like I just put Josh Allen or Jim Kelly in here and be done with it. But what's the fun in that? You want to go with the guys who maybe weren't as good, but played in an era where everybody threw for 3,000 yards. Like, for example, J.P. Lossman. Remember him? Not many people do, I guess, 2%. J.P. Lossman was a first-round pick out of Tulane in 2004, and the Bills thought he was their quarterback of the future, and he did in 2006 just get over the 3,000-yard mark, 3,051 yards. 19 touchdowns to go with 14 picks in his career, 33 touchdowns, 34 interceptions, 7 years in the pros, a lifetime record as a starter of 10 and 23. Not fondly remembered, J.P. Lossman. In the Dolphins category, again, you go Dan Marino here, be done with it, but you go Tua Tagovailoa here, be done with it. But what's the fun in that, right? We're trying to get the low score here, the low rarity score. Let's go back to the mid-90s, or the 2000s, I should say, and pull out Jay Fiedler, an Ivy Leaguer. Played at Dartmouth and was the Dolphins starter for a couple of years, early 2000s. In fact, I think he succeeded Dan Marino directly. I think he was the quarterback after Dan Marino. You never want to be the guy that follows the guy. Jay Fiedler was the guy that followed the guy. 69 career touchdown passes, 66 career interceptions, but did throw for 3,290 yards in 2001. So he fits with a 4% rarity score. Finally, Steelers 3,000-yard passing. I got to go with one of my personal favorites from my youth, Cordell Stewart, the great Colorado Buffalo, and ultimately longtime NFL starting quarterback. Threw in his first year as a starter for 3,020 yards, one of two times that he did it as the Steelers starter. Did it in 1997 and 2001. Loved him in college, loved him as a Coloradan growing up. Seeing him play for those early 90s Colorado teams under Bill McCartney that were so great. Had a nice NFL career, made a Pro Bowl, did some fun things as a runner and a receiver, hence the nickname Slash. Loved Cordell Stewart. 5% on the grid. All right, let's remember some Chiefs in the Chiefs column. Starting at the top, Chiefs Bills with a player I was convinced was going to be a star, and it never quite clicked. For CJ Spiller, 1% rarity score. Man, out of Clemson, I thought Spiller was going to be awesome. He was a 9th overall pick in the draft by the Bills. And for 1 year at least, his third year in the pros, he rushed for 1,200 yards and was a Pro Bowler. But that was about as good as it got for Spiller. And then towards the end, he bounced around. One career game with the Chiefs in 2017. But he kept popping up on the transaction wire. The Chiefs would sign him to the practice squad, and then they wouldn't activate him, and then they would cut him. He played in one game and got 2 carries for no yards in a 31-30 loss to the Raiders back in 2017. Remember that one? That was a stupid game. Raiders scored with no time left on the clock to win that game in Oakland back in the day. That was a stupid game. But CJ Spiller, thought he was going to be great, never panned out as a truly great player. And then toward the end, he kept getting signed and waived and probably had enough of it yanked around like that. Retired shortly after his dalliances with the Chiefs. For the Chiefs and the Dolphins, this is a well-known player, but probably not going to be a very high rarity score here is my guess. Justin Houston, 0.4%. Now, Justin Houston is an all-time Chiefs great. Like, I think he's probably – they know probably about it. They're going to put him in the Ring of Honor. I mean, the guy was an All-Pro, 22 sacks, led the league in 2014, 8 seasons with the Chiefs, 78.5 sacks. He's definitely going into the Ring of Honor at Arrowhead Stadium. Popped up last year with the Dolphins just in the playoffs against the Chiefs. You guys remember that? The Chiefs were playing the Dolphins in the wild card round. The Dolphins had so many defensive injuries. They had to bring Justin Houston and Bruce Irvin off the street, essentially, as free agents to play in that game. And so even though he never played a regular season game with the Dolphins, he still appeared as a Dolphin in the postseason. And he played like a decent number of snaps, 28% of the snaps, according to Pro Football Reference, and didn't do anything. And he wasn't alone. Nobody for the Dolphins did anything in that 26-7 loss. But yeah, Justin Houston, former Dolphin, for one playoff game, and not currently on a team. I think it might be over for Justin Houston, but a great career for him. Finally, Chiefs, Steelers. There are some really obvious ones here, right? Juju Smith-Schuster, Le'Veon Bell. How about a guy who started 2 Super Bowls for the Chiefs, and nobody remembers him? Stefan Wisniewski. For 0.3% and a 30 rarity score. Not too shabby, considering that one guy, Mike Wallace, is a third of that. I'm pretty happy with that. Stefan Wisniewski started 2 Super Bowls for the Chiefs. Most of his career in Oakland, turned up in Philadelphia as kind of a reserve lineman, swing lineman, won a Super Bowl with them, then turned up with the Chiefs in 2019. And late in that year, Andrew Wiley got hurt. And so Wisniewski stepped into the lineup at a guard spot because Wiley was playing guard at the time. And he started all the playoff games, including the Super Bowl win over the 49ers. Chiefs let him go after the season. He played one game with the Steelers in 2020 and then popped back up with the Chiefs late in the season when they had all of their injury issues. He was a reserve until the Super Bowl. He had to start the Super Bowl because Eric Fisher got hurt in the AFC Championship game. And, of course, you don't remember that Super Bowl as fondly if you're a Chiefs fan, but Wisniewski, one of the 5 offensive linemen that just could not keep Patrick Mahomes from running for his life against that Buccaneer defense that day in Tampa. But Stefan Wisniewski, good career, 139 career games, 106 starts, played in 3 Super Bowls, won 2 of them. Nice little career. 1 game with the Steelers, 2 Super Bowls with the Chiefs, 0.3%. So that's my board today, Pro Football Grid number 428. Would love to see your scores or your alternate answers for some of these squares. Leave them in the comments. And again, subscribe to the channel, 580 Sports Talk. Thanks for remembering some guys with me on this Thursday.